And of all the variety of asana practice, the one that is most conducive to quietening down is forward bends. I don't like to call them forward bend, it's a forward fold. Bend implies rounding of the spine. Don't round the spine. Particularly don't round your lumbar. Let it have the, as much as possible, the concavity. Just in this seated position. Pressing the heels to each other. Lift the chest. And that lift of the chest is what I call an internal lift. Means as you breathe in and out, on inhalation, the chest will rise. On exhalation, the chest will drop somewhat. But even as that effect of the breath is going on, there is a lift of the body that doesn't go down. It remains lifted. Which is a musculoskeletal lift. That lift comes more from the circumference of the body and the spinal muscles. To retain that sense of lift, I have to see where the lift comes from. Where does it originate? Although circumference of my body, my spinal muscles are involved, that lift really comes in a seated position. It comes from the way my legs work. In Baddha Konasana, see that the heels press to each other and you are attempting to rotate the thigh internally so that the pelvis untucks. Pushing the heels to each other, making the thigh longer, making the lower leg shorter. By doing that, increasing the pressure between the heels. As I untuck the pelvis, the sit bones are drawn back, the hip bones are drawn forward, so the pelvis is untucking. So it begins a correct curve of the lumbar, which then helps me to retain the lift. For most people, not for everybody, but definitely most people, the lift begins to be compromised, begins to become less, because the lumbar loses its concavity. There is not that much drop in the upper chest. It is largely the drop in the lumbar area. And if I look at that lumbar, I want to keep it concave. The concavity is even possible at the upper extremity of the lumbar, perhaps at the middle of the lumbar. But in the lowest part of the lumbar, it seems to be lost. And therefore, untucking the pelvis, rotating the thighs in, is a very important part to keep the lower lumbar concave. If you sit in meditation, almost any seated posture is acceptable. But in every one of them, you must keep your lumbar concave. To sit in meditation resting against the backrest of a chair or resting against a wall is not a good idea. Because as soon as you let the body rest like that, the lumbar, the lower lumbar begins to lose its concavity. So in any seated position of meditation, I would be very careful that I keep my pelvis untucking. To keep the pelvis untucking in any seated position, even if you are seated on a chair, it is desirable that the femur near the knee is little lower compared to the femur at the top of the thigh. So the thigh is slanting towards the knee. Which gives you a better chance at untucking the pelvis. And you want to keep that sensation in the pelvis so that the inner height of the chest is not lost. Even as you breathe in, out, that inner height of the chest remains. Because that inner height of the chest then in turn allows your breath to be freer, and the free breath helps you to keep the mind, the brain in a state where it can more clearly ask, who am I? And on the other hand, if you simply keep that lumbar lifted like that, like I just described, so that your back feels better, this is not wrong, it's fine. If your lower back needs that, it's a good action. Put your hands on your pectoral area, your fingers. Push the pecs down. And as you breathe, lift that area. On exhalation, try not to drop it, like you would do in pranayama. On inhalation, the pecs lift up. On exhalation, they are not dropped down. But as you do that in Baddha Konasana position, desirable as that action is, if in the process your lumbar gives way, then let go of the hand support. Try to do a similar thing with your hands on the floor behind you. If your hands don't reach the floor, you can put the hands on two blocks. Pushing the hands down, lift the chest. And then you sort of play with it. How much of the hand support you can let go of to see that the lumbar doesn't collapse. Try once again. With the hands, push, lift the trunk up, and slowly let go of the hand support. What is it that first collapses?
It's the legs.
That's a good and correct answer. An incorrect answer, which many people tend to give, is I feel a collapse in my lumbar. Lumbar doesn't collapse. Your leg action collapses first.